walk you through building a very simple questionnaire, and we'll do different things along the way. Wait, my connection is unstable. So okay, so let's just start and share my screen. This should be fine. So this is a dashboard that you know by now, and the very outline of a task. And what we can see here is here. We can see the wrapper part of each script. You don't really need to understand what this does, just that it's necessary for every script. And this is the this is the heart of every task. This is the sequence, and this is where we tell where we tell Minno.js what it needs to do. And what we already know is that we want some sort of object here. Okay, in the sequence, we want it.
Just one comment to add, because I see it in the first line. You can see that in the define, you have quest API. And in the previous example that I showed you, we had time API. And that's really the difference between defining a questionnaire and a time-sensitive task. So the only thing that tells Minno that it's a questionnaire from this file is the quest API, right, Elad?
And that has all sorts of implications. Maybe later we'll show you what happens if you use the wrong type of API when writing script. So so we know this much, and the structure of and this object, as we said before, represents a page. Each page gets displayed on its own, and it can have all different sorts of contents. So the questions. So this is the basic structure of a page. It's an object with questions. Now, the first thing that to ask a question.
And I think you're breaking off again. Right? It's not in my.
Yeah, it might make sense for you to like turn off your video maybe for a little bit, and then because I think that sometimes helps. Yeah, sometimes helps with the sound quality if you don't have video.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I can answer. William had a question about whether each add sequence is one page, and the answer is no. Each curly brackets that you see in the sequence is one page.
Okay. Is this any better?
You have to speak more so we could.
Okay, I'll speak and then we'll see. I want to put in questions is that you know what question we have, and I don't remember. So what I do is right. So we want to open the documentation site. Now, this is a site again that you really need to get to know. If you want, you can run all sorts of tests in the playgrounds at the bottom here. You can look at you can do that in just your spare time. The important part for us right now is the documentation. Now, within the documentation, we have a section that deals with questionnaires. And that's where we want to go. And within questionnaires, within each of the types of tasks, there's a section called, there are different sections. You should just browse them to see what's going on. API is all the holds all the different actions or things that you can do within that specific task. We first want to look at pages. What we can do them. Do you hear me well? Should I try to change network?
I see people nodding the
okay,
answer.
good.
Probably yes. I mean, I think you're still breaking off for some time, but let's see. I think it's better also.
Okay. Better, but not. Let's see. Let's see if this helps. I'm trying to.
In the meantime, Heidi had a question.
This helps, honey.
Did you switch a connection?
I switched a connection. I hope this works.
Yeah. Okay. Heidi had a question about what API stands for. And in general, API is Application Programming Interface.
Yeah. So basically, that's it. It's an interface. Just an easy way to do this. We could have called it DSL if we wanted, or all sorts of other acronyms. But for these needs, it's just the interface to Minno.js. Okay, so under pages, we have all sorts of different keys that we can use. For example, we can add a header to our questionnaire, like that. This is my header. Okay, and then we have an example here. Here, this is an example of a page. Okay, you can see how it's supposed to look, with a header, with questions, with an option to change the header style. We try to put in a lot of examples, so you can just copy paste whatever you need. So this is a more or less this is a more or less classic format for a page. You can copy it and use it whenever you want. Okay, but we were looking for a question to ask, and we wanted a question that deals with that can take a name and save it. And for that, we want a text question. And text questions can look like this. Okay, this here is the whole page, and this is the question part. And what I'm going to do is simply copy the question from here and use it in my script. Just so you know, these editor parts of the documentation can be actively run. So and edited live. So this is how the question is going to look when we take it into our questionnaire. So I copy the question from its beginning to the end. These are the curly brackets again. And I simply paste it here and fix the indentation. Indentation is not meaningful in JavaScript, but it helps a lot to just understand what's going on. Okay, for example, these lines show us where the question begins and ends, and the indentation helps to make that clear to read. So let's go through the keys in this question and see what they mean. So the first key is the type of question. This is a text question, meaning it offers you a text input that you can fill. The stem for all question means essentially what the question itself is. In this case, when you say good morning, what do you mean? And then we have an option to make this question required and set an error message if it if the person doesn't fill it in. So let's change the stem here. So what is your name? And let's keep the question required and the error message, which is what the player tells you when you don't fill it in. Yeah, let's keep it like this and see if this runs. So I save the file. You can click save here, or you can just Control S or Command S depending on your operating system. And then we can run it and see what happens. Okay, so we have, this is our header as we set it, and we have our question stem. And if we try to submit without an answer, it tells us this question is truly important to us. Please take your time to answer. And then we have a warning. The warning says, there's a question without a name. I tell you what it is, but it has no name. So Minno.js has a problem. The question doesn't have an identifier, and therefore it won't be able to reliably save its values and refer to it specifically. So what we do is go back and give the question a name, and we'll call it username. Okay, note that at the end of each row here, or after every key value pair, we always have a comma, and it's something that that when you add things in the middle, at least I forget a lot of times. When when we do, we get warnings from the editor. We can float above these X's and get explanations. A lot of time, the text here will not be meaningful to you. It'll just be a warning that something has gone wrong, and you need to figure out what it is. In this case, very easy. It's just to add the comma here. Okay. So we have a first question, but this is a page. It can take more than one question. And you can see that questions doesn't take an object directly. Rather, it takes an array with square brackets, not curly brackets. And arrays are lists of things. So we can add another type of question in this place. Let's go back to the documentation and figure out what we want. So let's see, a multiple choice question. I think that will work for us. So we don't remember how multiple choice questions work. So we just copy one. Where are we? We just there's a comma missing here again. And we have another question. This time, it's a multiple choice question. And it says, do you like bananas? And for multiple choice questions, we need the choices. So within the question, the question, we have another array with the various possible answers. But by default, the answers are saved literally as their original text. But if we set numeric values to true, then instead we get 0, 1, and 2 as the answers. Okay, now let's make sure this works. Okay, so okay, now the second question doesn't have a name. Let's fix that very quickly. So, I prefer ice cream. We'll call this ice cream. And we save, and we run, and here we go. Okay, so we can put in my name and how much I like ice cream and submit, and everybody's very happy.
Yeah, I've noticed there were a couple of questions.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, the double backlash here is a comment, and conveniently it's colored appropriately, and we can recode we can easily recode the values here. This is an example of how it can be done. Instead of writing the text directly into the array, we use an object and explicitly set the value. The value can be anything here. Okay, just one thing that you need to know in this specific case is that you can't use the same value twice, because then the answer isn't uniquely identified. Okay. Wait, I lost my Zoom. Where are you? Oh, no. Any other questions here? Okay, so try to put the chat here so it doesn't bother me. So we have a basic page with 2 questions, and that's all good and well. Oh, no, I don't want that. And now we want to get just a bit more sophisticated. And to do that, we'll see how we deal with a series of similar questions. So let's create a new page. And this page, again, will have a header. And it'll say, hello. And it'll have questions. In this case, just one question, but we still use an array because that's just how questions work. And it makes life easier. And I want to create a questionnaire, an anxiety questionnaire, because that's what I do. And I want to ask several similar questions. So the way I do this, I'll start by creating a single question, and then duplicate it and see how that's done. You'll see later on that we have a lot of way to automate things, to repeat, to randomize, lots and lots of ways to do that. When I create tasks, I almost always create the first version directly in the sequence, and then start manipulating it, making it reusable and randomizing different values. We'll get there, but we start in directly in the sequence. So again, we want a select one question. So I'll just copy this one. And let's say, how often do you feel fear? And we'll call this fear 1, and have every day less than 3 times a week. Sometimes and and never. These are very bad values, but I don't remember what we use for real. So we have another question. This will be the put in a name and submit, and then we get this this question. But I don't want to ask it once. I want to ask it more than once, maybe 3 or 4 times with different versions. So the first thing that you do, and you can do that, sometimes it will be the most convenient for you, is to just copy paste. And then don't forget the comma. And then how often do you sweaty hands? This is fear 2. The problem with this is that it is first of all, it's very it's hard to read because there are lots and lots of lines of code here. Each of these is like 15 lines of code, and if you have 10 questions, it's suddenly 150. Also, it's very different to change. If you want to change the wording of some of the answers, if you want to add some sort of styling, anything of that sort, and suddenly you need to make a lot of changes. So in order to solve that, what we're going to do is use a technique or a tool called inheritance. The idea behind inheritance is that you take an object and you separate it. You put it somewhere else, not in the sequence. I'll show you in a second. And then you can tell any object to go copy that generic object. I'll show you how it works, and I hope it'll be clear. So we usually create. Wait, I don't remember exactly. Let's go back to the documentation. So under core concepts and API, of course. No, under sequencer, we have a section called inheritance. And you can see a detailed explanation of how to inherit anything. And the basic idea is this: we we create a set of questions that we can later on copy. So I'll just copy this as is and use it in our study. Let's straighten it out. So we have a generic Likert set. What I do in that example is I do double inheritance. So you can inherit an object that inherits a different object. Let's simplify things here for a second. Instead of doing double inheritance, we'll do everything in the same place. And this will be just Likert for our use. And what we do, we take one of these questions that we already created, and just put it inside this question set. Now, the question set, not page set, sorry. Okay. And what we want to do when in this type of set is keep only the keys and the values that we want to repeat. So the stem is unique. The type is the type is common. Set of numeric values is common as well, and the answers to each question are common. So what we can do now is, instead of putting in all these key value pairs, we can simply go back and inherit from this set. And essentially what it does is copy all these values. So what this looks like is we can remove this, and we can remove all these. And suddenly we have something a lot shorter, a lot easier to read. Okay, and we can do that again and again. So
Lad, before you duplicate everything, I think you need to inherit in the question.
Right. We want to inherit both of these. Thank you, Yoav.
But now you're in a page and you want to inherit the question.
Okay, and now we want to change the text as well. And this is here too. And we'll get the same thing. Let's try to run this and see if it works. So this is our first page. And then, how often do you feel fear? And how often do you have sweaty hands? And we're good. Okay. Questions about this? Anyone?
Is there any way to have a bunch of questions on this? Like, is the way that PI is set up such that you prefer having people answer one question at a time versus having, like 5 questions on the same page if they're using the same scale, and then sort of just like selecting 1, 2, 3, 4 down the page?
So you can do whatever you like.
Yeah, so in Minno, you can do whatever you like. Like you could put everything question,
So
but it is true.
Yeah, I could do this instead, and then we'd have them on the same page.
Yeah,
And however many that I want.
Yeah, but it is true that in project implicit, the standard is to use one question for a page. There is, I remember that there was a study that we conducted internally, and then we saw that it's better to use one question in a page. I can't say how, I mean, I don't remember exactly whether it was ever published, but I do know that that's the standard in project implicit, because we believe that then the completion rate is better.
Was it?
If you're running studies in the research pool, I know that if you want to put multiple questions on the same page, Carly's definitely going to tell you not to do it. So this applies to people who are.
Yeah, and as you can see, Jordan just pasted the study. So yeah.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, that's good to know. Okay, so pages exist so that you can put more than one question on a page, but as we just figured out, it's probably best practice to use just one question on a page. I can think of several situations where you still want to have more than one question on a page, but maybe we'll get to it at the end of this talk. Okay, so we still have a rather involved sequence, and I want to show you another way that you can simplify it, both so it's more readable and it's easier to use. So when we create question sets, some of the time we create them with only a single object inside of them. And this is usually when we want to use the set as a sort of prototype for other other objects, other questions in this case. But we can use it in another way as well. We can use it for both organization and randomization. So I'll show you how you do both. So let's take this. This structure. I'm closing. Here I close the array. Here I close the parenthesis. And we want a different name. Let's say anxiety questions. Okay. And now let's copy these questions up here. Okay, now the question is a lot more compact and it's in a single place. And what we can do is duplicate it. So now we have fear 1, 2, and 3. Don't forget the commas at the end of each line. And we have how often do you feel fear? How do you have sweaty hands? You avoid leaving your house, whatever. Okay, so we have 3 questions here in a set. What this allows us to do is instead of directly writing the questions into the page, one second, and just format it like I like. I'm I'm a bit OCD about this, as you'll see. And then instead of inheriting directly, which just randomly picks out of the set, which sometimes is useful when you have more than one item, but most often we use it to just pick a single object, right? There's only a single object in this set. So if you randomly pick an object, it's always the same one. If we randomly pick from anxiety questions, we just randomly pick one of them. And that's not always what we want to do, because wait, I'll just show you what happens. I think it'll help. So instead of having these questions, what we have is something that looks like this. And we can directly duplicate it. And the inheritance will take care of it. Will take care of the content. Okay. Now there are two problems here. One is that there are two exact copies that look the same, and we don't like that. It's trouble. It's a lot of code. It's difficult to read, and we want a solution for repeating the same thing more than once. And we'll get there in a moment. The second is that in this case, the inheritance is the inheritance picks randomly and returns what it picks. And we want to randomize, but pick questions exclusively. And for that, we go back to the inheritance documentation.
Just to clarify what you mean by exclusively and with return, you mean you can select the same item twice randomly, but you don't want it. You want to select all, from the items that were not selected before.
Yeah. Okay, so if we go to the types of inheritance, we have the random type, which is what we use by default when we just inherit and give a set name. And then we have xrandom, which stands for exclusive random. And it looks like this. So what we do is we just copy it in here. And instead of writing Likert, we use this whole object. And what this means is to pick from the set anxiety questions, and the way we pick an object is using the xrandom function, which picks exclusively. And now we can be sure that these questions will not repeat themselves. I'll show you how this works. One sec. So we have three exactly identical pages here, as you can see. And when I run the experiment, I get this. And how often do you avoid leaving your house? Which was the third question, and then the second, and then the first. And each time we'd run this, we'd get a different order. Okay, is that clear? Any questions about how inheritance works, when we use it, when not?
And just to be clear, what you selected for X random will only pick different questions, but won't repeat?
So it won't repeat until it's exhausted all the questions, and then it'll start from the beginning with a different randomization set.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so if I add another X random inheritance from anxiety questions, it'll pick a new one, and it's possible that at the transition between the first set of X random, and the second, the same question will be repeated twice, right? So for the first three are guaranteed not to repeat themselves. But after they're exhausted, I start the randomization from the beginning, and I might get the third from the first set being the first from the second set. Fine. Okay, so we don't like this because this it involves too much repetition, and it complicates our scripts. It's difficult to read, and it's difficult to change. So what we need is a tool to organize the different objects in the sequence. And in Minno.js, this tool is called a mixer. And we go back to the documentation. And after inheritance, as soon as it responds, I want to show an example of a mixer. Okay, so in general, mixers are objects, the same as pages or questions. And they have a value, a key called mixer with a type of mixer. And they always have a data key with an array of values. And then they do all sorts of things with the data in this array. A random mixer, for example, just displays all the objects within data in a random order. Okay, this is just so you understand the syntax. There's the mixer key that says what type of mixer this is, and data that holds a sort of subsequence that it can do all sorts of things with. And in our case, what we want is a repeat mixer, which takes the elements in data and repeats them some number of times. So I just copy the mixer from here. And what we have is pages that we want to repeat. Exactly the same. So I put them in data. And we don't need these anymore. We already have these three repetitions. Wants to ask me a question. I can't follow the chat, so just break in and ask out loud. So we have, again, a mixer of type repeat with data, which is our page. And this one has an additional property called times, how many times to repeat. And what this does is repeats this, this element or this object 3 times. Now, regularly, this wouldn't be useful, because why would we want to show the same question multiple times? But since we're using inheritance and this randomization, then it becomes really useful and really simple. So we play this and get the exact same thing. And how often do you feel? This is number 1, and then this is number 3, and finally number 2 of our questions.
Ed?
Yeah.
Just noticed that you have about 15 minutes, so I mean, you can continue with this one, but if you also wanted to show an existing questionnaire, then you're almost out of time.
No, that wasn't that isn't the plan.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, okay. I have 15 minutes.
12.
12 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
12 minutes is plenty for me. Yeah.
Just
I
a
think
quick.
I need something more like 5. So go ahead.
Just a quick question. Is there any?
You had a question?
Yeah. Is there any benefit to using like using the mixer versus like the longer format? Or is it just tidier, or is there a benefit on the end user side? Like, is it faster for people to go through if you use?
No, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
You get a lot of benefit from this as you make more complex things. Think how complex this would get if instead of repeating 3 questions, you want to repeat 20 questions. And what would happen if you want to nest the mixers one within another and randomize some of them? So there are a lot of tools to deal with repetition and randomization in Minno.js. I want to show you another one of these right now. These are just some tastes of what you can do and where you can look. Browse the documentation, read various tasks that other people made. You'll see lots of variations and ways to do these. And part of creating studies is figuring out which type of randomization and organization fits you best. Okay, so one last thing that I want to show you is how to use the response to one question within another part of Minno.js. And our first question was, what is your name? And I want, and in this page, we say hello. And I want to say hello to the user's templates. The idea behind templates is that there are all the data behind Node.js is organized in several objects that hold the responses, that hold different types of data that you create, all sorts of things like that. And within templates, you can inject these data into strings in Minno.js. So we again go back to the documentation, to the template section. And then okay, so in general, this is how a template. You have this weird, these weird symbols before and after the variable, a specific variable. Now, how do we get the response names? Okay, we look for it in the documentation because we're short on time. I'll do it from memory if I can. No, I'll do it from memory right now. So where are we? So we have this word some and determines like this. And what we want to do questions. What do we call this? Username. User. So what this is it goes to a variable called current. Then it goes to the questions within that. I have a problem with the dashboard here. One sec. Here we go. So there's the questions. Within the questions, it picks the question called username. Recall that we named this question username here. And then it goes and takes a response. Now when we run this study, it says hello Elad, because it took the name that I submitted before into the text question and injected it here. Now, so yeah, that's this. Okay, so I want to say several things before I end. One is that I showed you just a very first taste, both of how to use questionnaires and the various ways to randomize and automate and generalize. There are many types of mixers and inheritances and different ways to organize them together with templates. Lots and lots of ways to do this, and with time you'll get to know them and figure out what works best for you. That's one thing. The second is that most people don't program in Minno.js like I just did. You don't start from scratch. The way both to create your first mini studies and to learn Minno.js is by reading scripts created by others. So there are a lot of questionnaires and mealtime tasks that all over the place that you can read and figure out and change to your needs. And the beginning of learning and understanding is getting a general idea about how things work. I hope that's what you got with this session today, and then start reading other scripts and tinkering with them. Tinker, play, tinker, play, tinker, play. That's the way of the that's the way of the programmer. That's the way to get into Minno.js. Okay. Let's try to put this back. Okay. Any questions? Anything wasn't clear that you want me to expand about?
Well, if there aren't any questions, then I just want to remind you what's going to happen in the rest of the day. In 15 minutes, I'll give you the talk about.
One second. There's a question. Where are the four if we encounter different difficulties? I'm not sure I understand.
Not sure.
Like forums, maybe?
Oh, so in the documentation site, there's at the top, there's a link to the forum. There's a Google group that works really well. You might need to wait a day or so to get answers, but people are super friendly and super helpful. Oh, thanks, William. Yeah, okay, so so branching. Branching is way, way, way more powerful than Qualtrics. Go into mixers, branching, and see all the options. You can do really, really complicated stuff really easily. And if you're willing to work, you can really go crazy. So yeah.
Okay, I was going to mention the form, but Elad already did. And you can also get to the form from the documentation. You'll see that at the top of the page. There's also a blog there in which usually Elad or someone else adds some tutorials how to do some complicated stuff. So it would be good to look at the blog and see whether there's, just try to register that if you ever need anything that is there. The forum, by the way, is for Minno users, not for Project Implicit users. So it's really questions about Minno, but not, let's say, about the researcher dashboard, how to deploy studies or stuff like that. Always it's about the coding, because people who use Minno and not within Project Implicit also ask questions there and searching for answers there. Anything else that anyone think that we should add at this point?
Maybe just that it's possible to use Minno.js outside of Project Implicit. I mean, the server that we offer is very good and very convenient, but there are other ways to use Minno.js, and it's absolutely free, and we try to support anyone that wants to use this tool.
Yeah, so you can see that at the beginning of you have the slides from my talk, and it's there at the beginning, and also in the getting started page in the documentation. Also, that's pretty much all the details that you need, as far as I remember, for the many ways to use Minno.